safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
This little piggy went to market, and that little piggy stayed at home. And that little piggy had roast beef, and all the little piggies had none. And this little piggy says, this is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
A very good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to a very sensible and not at all silly sunset safari, starting off not with piggies so much, but with a family of warthogs. And just a quick introduction, my name is Jamie, and this afternoon Sebastian is on camera with me, doing a marvellous job in participating in my interesting, hopefully entertaining start to our sunset safari. We're coming to you from a place called Djuma Private Game Reserve, which is in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. And because this is a live safari, that means that you can send through your questions on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. This afternoon, usually we start off every afternoon with a school drive. This afternoon, the schools will be joining us for the last half an hour of drive. Right, housekeeping done. Check. Let's go back to our feeding sounder of warthogs on the open area right outside of our camp. This is Quarantine Clearings, so named because apparently cattle were quarantined on this particular open area back in the day when this was farmland. Luckily for us, we can enjoy it in its natural, relatively wild state. What lovely news. I'm actually very surprised by this. Tristan is out this afternoon. That's not the surprise. But the fact that he's found a tortoise is.
Indeed, Jamie, this is one of those random moments where you wouldn't expect a tortoise to be moving around. It's not exactly tortoise weather. It's not rainy or cold or overcast. But she should I say, is out and moving straight down towards some shady areas. Now, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I have Ferg, and like I say, we're going to be out looking for all things wonderful. And that tortoise actually reminds me a bit of James Henry yesterday morning when he was pretending to dodder along on his bushwalk and had the same sort of gait as that tortoise. Now remember, this is an interactive show, and we are live, which means that you can get hold of us on Twitter at hashtag Safari Live if you have any questions about the tortoise or just anything in general. Now, our tortoise seems to be going off into the bush, which is not ideal. We're going to try and get a little bit closer so we can actually get to see it, because they have the most beautiful markings. This particular tortoise is a leopard tortoise, so it's one of two species that we get in this area. We get the Speaks hingeback tortoise, which I haven't seen in quite a few days, and which is the one that we call Gregory at camp, and Gregory seems to have gone missing. But the leopard tortoise is a lot more sort of brightly colored and has this big dome shaped shell like we see on this particular female. Now I say it's a female because of the fact that, oh sorry Ferg, have you missed her camouflage? So you can see why they have those colors. They are crafty according to Ferg, and one has to be careful of these crafty tortoises that hide and then come bursting out of the bush and scare you. Now this particular female we know is a female because of the size. You won't find a male tortoise getting as large as this. She's very, very big, very bulky, and has got that massive domed shell, which is typical of the females. They get much, much larger than the males. And I am surprised, like Jamie said, that she is out and about. It is very warm now, so she's going to be losing quite a bit of moisture moving around at this time. So I wonder if something didn't disturb her wherever she was lying in a shady area, and that's why she's moving off. Also could be that she came for a drink. We're in an area around cellar pans. There's quite a few little wallows and muddy pans here that she could have come and had a drink from, should I say, and may have filled up that bursa sac, which is that sac that they keep fluid in to be able to sustain themselves through the dry periods. But isn't that shell beautiful? Look at those amazing colors, and you can see why it gets the name leopard tortoise. That sort of black and yellow coloration is really very synonymous with a leopard's coat, and looks pretty similar other than the fact that they're not in rosettes. Now, she seems to be going into some thicket. So I think we're going to leave our tortoise and let it carry on its way into the bushy areas and go and get some peace and quiet and get Ferg away from stalking it. And while we do that, let's go to James Henry so he can say hello.
Not sure I want to say hello to Tristan. I'm very happy to say hello to all of you and greet you fondly in the name of the Wilderness and Safari Live. My name is James Henry, and it is marvellous to have you with us here on our walk this afternoon. Hashtag Safari Live is how you get hold of us, and Craig is on camera. We come to you, of course, from the northeast corner of South Africa, the 8.5 million acre wilderness wonderland that is the Greater Kruger National Park. Dun, dun, dun. Good. And Herbert, who is on walk with us, has just found something interesting. We're going to go and see what it is after I've just quickly shown you the beautiful yellow flower that is the elephant's ear. I think that's what it's called, if I'm not mistaken. Is it not pretty there? Craig, that was for you. Is it not pretty?
Yes.
It's overwhelming, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, I can see how overwhelmed you are. Now, our plan this afternoon is basically to head down towards the southeastern block of the reserve. There may be some lion tracks there, but basically we think most of the cats are not on the reserve at the moment. And so we'll just see what we can find as we make our way there. Jamie, here's a minute grasshopper. Jamie had some lion tracks there. We're pretty sure they've gone south, but on the off chance that they haven't, we'll just go into that area. See here. Tiny little thing. And if I'm not mistaken, that is a junior version of... what's it called? A Brachypus? That's it. Brachypus something fronds. There is little Brachypus. Good morning! At least good afternoon. Brachypus, get up and go and do something useful. You have to make hay while the sun doth shine, because the sun is not going to shine for much longer. And so I can still hear some grasshoppers around me, but definitely it's quietening down. There's a little beetle walking behind. You see the little beetle, Craig? There it is. It's enormous. It's about 2 millimeters long. Why can't you see it? There we go. All right, we're going to leave Brachypus to his afternoon. And we're going to carry on. Now, I believe Jamie Patterson has managed to find herself a small thing with sharp teeth that may probably eat Brachypus if given half a chance.
There we go. It goes, and it's gone. It would absolutely have eaten the grasshoppers if it had the opportunity to. It was a dwarf mongoose. They're all around us. I can hear them squeaking and contact calling to each other, but that was the last one that I could see any sign of. The rest of them are all hiding in the long grass, and I think, Seb, that might be it. I think we're done. I can't see another one. This termite mound obviously isn't one of their bolt holes, which I thought it might be. I thought it might be one of their den sites, but there's no sign of any holes, no sign of any mongoose scat all over the top, no droppings. Oh no, oh dear, our dwarf mongoose have evaded us. And I really wanted to show you that particular dwarf mongoose that ran across the road, because it's got quite a nasty injury on its back leg, and not really to talk about in a negative sense, just to show what resilient creatures they are, because it's already started to scar over. But I think, ow, that's my own fault for leaving my box in a stupid place. I think that's the end of our dwarf mongoose. Not forever, just this particular group. Nope. Okay, well, this afternoon my plan is to go and check waterholes. It's hot. It's actually very warm. I can't remember exactly what the temperature is, but I know it's much warmer than it has been. I'm going to go check waterholes. Maybe some of the elephants are still around from this morning. And then I'm going to go west, because this morning I was in the east and I spent basically the entire 3 hours tracking either a leopard that walked off the property or the lions that led me in circles within circles within circles. And as far as we can tell, went south. We're still not 100% sure on that, but as far as we can tell, they went south somewhere onto Little Gowrie, which unfortunately is outside of our particular traverse area. I have to show you this. Had a good chuckle at this. Shame. I shouldn't laugh because I'm not the one who has to fix it, although I have been the one to fix such things in the past, but not this time. The elephants did an interesting job. They dug up the pipe from the pump house. That's where we get our water from. They've dug it up, and what they've left us with is a really nice pan. A really nice, very picturesque pan in Philemon's Dip. That's quite lovely. Right, well, this is a favourite spot of one primate creature, and I believe Tristan has found one elsewhere.
Well, we did have them, but they have disappeared down into the thickets and gone. So we did have a vervet monkey. Ah, there they are, actually. You can see them, just a tail. There we go. Welcome back. It seems like the game is on now. So we've got a few of them that are playing a little bit. There we go. Hello, guys. Now, these vervet monkeys have all started coming out of the trees, and there's even a warthog that's joined them as well. You see that, Ferg? There's a warthog on the right-hand side behind the monkey. There we go. And that's probably why they all came bursting out, is because the warthog has just pitched up on the scene and has come out and grazing. And I wonder what there is here that's attracting animals, because prior to the monkeys and the warthog, we had an impala and 2 waterbuck as well that were standing in the same spot. So maybe there's some sort of food source or water that's inside here that they're all after, and that's why we've got a congregation of all of these animals. Now, the monkeys seem to be just taking it very easy, and there's 1 or 2 of the babies have been playing and running around, but the adults have been moving from sort of shade to shade and just looking around for food more than anything else. They haven't really been doing too much, and I can see there's a waterbuck coming out just on the left hand side. There's our warthog. It's on its knees grazing at this stage. It looks like a female warthog. And isn't this nice to have a whole bunch of species together? It looks like our waterbuck might come up as well out of the ditch. I can just see its horns poking out at this stage, but it does look like it might come and join the monkey and the warthog, and we'll have a whole party going on by the end of this. It's always nice when you get lots of species together. You can just see in the bottom left corner there our waterbuck just starting to show, and you see the tail moving, and there are the horns, a little young male. Hello, yes, we are talking about you. There must be some sort of water source down here somewhere, because the water went down into that little dip and they're now coming out again. So I'm sure that's what there is. And actually we spotted some elephants also inside the riverbed. So there is a number of different animals all spread along the Mulawati River. And it's also probably because of the sun that we have today. It's quite warm out here, and it would be much better if they nice. It's just good habitat generally for a herbivorous animal, which would mean that hopefully there would be a predator afoot as well. So H. Macy, you're wondering how many different species of monkey we have here. Well, currently right now none. They've all run away. No, I'm just joking. It's just the one species of monkey, which is the vervet monkey, and then we've got one ape, which is the baboon. So the 2 primates, and then the 3rd primate that we get, which is a monkey that we see at night, is the bush baby. So they are related to the monkeys. They also are a primate, and so you'll find that they are here as well. And those are the only 3 that we see. Oh, I lie, actually, there's 2 bush babies. We have a lesser and a thick-tailed bush baby, so there's actually 4 primates that we see here in the Kruger National Park area. But in terms of a proper monkey, like this, others, these are the only ones that are occurring here. Now, I want to go and quickly check what's made all this noise that's freaked everybody out, and while we do that, I think Jamie's still out and about and searching, and I wonder what her plans are for today.
I don't really know what my plans are. I kind of told you I'm aiming to go to the west, but I figured this morning my mistake was that I was trying far too hard to track those lions. I invested... By the end of that drive this morning, I was... Look, there was a hungry portion to the frustration that I think might have made the emotions seem a bit more extreme. But Seb, I was a bit frustrated, wasn't I? Just a little bit. Hangry.
Angry and hungry.
Angry and hungry. I was hangry. So this afternoon I'm not trying at all. I mean, obviously I'm going to try, especially if we find some tracks, but I'm telling myself I'm not going to try at all. We're just going to bumble about and see what we bump into. Lady Starfire, you would like to know if there's any way that we could find a snake today. The person that we need to ask really is James, but the problem there is that he's with Herbie at the moment, and Herbie's brilliant at spotting things, but he doesn't enjoy snake segments, let's just put it that way. Herbie doesn't particularly like snakes, especially black mambas. He's been bitten before in his life, not by a black mamba, but he has been bitten by a snake before. So I think he has a degree of caution. But absolutely, it's a possibility. It's a warm winter's day, and snakes throughout our winter season will come out and sunbathe. They might even go hunting if it's a warm enough day. And if there's plenty of moisture around still, so I don't see any reason why it's impossible. Now we just have to find you one. That's going to be the tricky part. I wonder where we'd start looking. I'll keep an eye out, Lady Starfire, I promise. We'll all keep an eye out for you. Not that we ever ignore snakes. Alright, I haven't found any reptiles, but Tristan has found a relatively close relative.
Well, we've got a bird. Yes, I suppose it is a relatively close relative, as you say, Jamie. But this is probably one of the most beautiful birds, and it does have an iridescence, much like some of the snakes do when you see them in bright sunlight like we have now. So you can see those bright sort of purples and blues that are coming through. It really is a very beautiful bird. Now, this particular starling is called a Burchell starling, and we know that because of its long tail and its dark black eye. If it had a lighter colored eye, then it would be one of the glossy starlings, but it doesn't, and so we know it's the only one that can be here is the Burchell starling. But look at that, isn't that amazing? And you see as the bird changes and moves and the light hits it in different ways that the feathers actually lose their iridescence. So this bird is actually not blue and purple and green like we see there. It's the feathers are actually black, and the way that the preening oils are on it and the structure of the feather itself, there is a sort of reflection that comes back at us, and it works much like a prism in a way, and the light that refracts is of different colors, and so that's why we see this iridescent shine. It really is quite spectacular. Now, it's disappearing behind the grass, and it's obviously having a field day hunting varying insects that are moving around in the grasses, because it's running around like a headless chicken, so to speak, looking for any signs. Now, there is a giraffe somewhere around here on our right hand side. I was hoping to be able to see it, but I can't actually find it at the moment. We saw it from a long way away. Oh, there it is, Ferg, I can see it. Let me just reposition a little bit. So it seems everything has decided to be in one spot. So we've got the waterbuck, the warthog, giraffe, elephant, the starling, monkeys. It's all happening. And there you can just see the silhouette of the horns against the background. There we go, there's our female giraffe. And it's quite odd to have just one female on her own. I wouldn't be surprised if there are some more around. But we know it's a female just because of those ossicones. You can see that they've got very, very small, slender, not too much balding on top. So that is typical of a female. Now you can see also that the oxpeckers are driving her crazy. She's throwing her head up in the air. Oh, look at that, Ferg, there's also an elephant. Right, yeah. It seems that everything is on its way out today. So while we're watching our giraffe, a little sneaky young elephant has just popped up and is on its way towards Twin Dams. It's probably because of the heat today that everything is slowly but surely coming. There's also a hippo face that I can see in the water, so too much to actually look at. It feels like we're being pulled in 20 directions at this stage, which is never the worst thing. It really is quite nice when you get so many different species congregating in the same areas. And this is the best thing about the winter months, is as it starts to get dry and it starts to get hot, stays hot like this during the middle of the day, there's fewer and fewer places that they can get water, and so you'll find the animals are going to start coming down to these areas, and you get these concentrations of many different species trees together. And there you go, there's our 2 hippos that Ferg has spotted. It looks like a terrapin on top of one of the one's heads on the left there. You can see the little terrapin taking a ride on its head. Now, terrapin, that's not probably the best place to be. I'm sure if that hippo goes under, that terrapin's going to go for a swim, unfortunately. Now, I wonder if we can't get a little bit closer so it's not so obscured. Let's try, Ferg, and see. We'll come back to our giraffe a little bit later. I don't think our giraffe's going to go too far, and probably in all likelihood it will actually come down to the water. And I'm sure our Ellie is going to probably drink. There's lots more elephants in the background here. I can hear lots of branches breaking, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do have more Ellies joining us shortly. This is just a young one, and there seems to be quite a few. I'm not going to go too much closer because I don't want the terrapin to go back under with the hippo's head, but it just went under. The elephant has ruined it all and chased our terrapin off. You can see the ripples where it went off. Oh no, it's all gone a little bit awry there. Shame, poor terrapin. It obviously got a bit scared of this big looming elephant that was coming down and then popped off back into the water. The hippo doesn't seem too perturbed by all of this and is quite fine with this elephant walking along. Interesting though that I was just watching that elephant. It keeps going along the edge and putting its trunk in the water and doesn't actually seem to be drinking. I wonder if it's trying to find fresher water, and it probably thinks that this water is not of good enough quality for it to actually drink. Or it could be, because it's a young male, it's possible that another herd has already come through here and it's fallen off the back of its herd, and that's why it's sniffing along the edge of that bank, now trying to find where the rest of the herd is. Let's just go around and see. Maybe the rest of them are on the other side of the dam wall. Now, unfortunately, in this area we don't have the best signal, so we have to be a bit careful about where we drive, and in certain areas we can go, in certain areas we can't. Let's try this side, Ferg. I think this might be the best way. I wonder where the rest of the herd is, though. It's very seldom that you have young individuals like this arriving at a waterhole by themselves. Even though it is a male, it's not a very old male at all. He's quite a young individual, I would say, probably only about 8 years old, so it's not really a very old individual at all. And it seems like he's going. I thought he was going to have a little drink, but it seems like he's actually going to go over the top of the dam wall and away from all of us. So while we try and see what we're going to look at and get ourselves in a static situation, let's go back to James, who's got a bird before it flies away.
That bird has flown away, had its next birthday, died, and gone to heaven, I'm afraid. It is a Burchell starling. You can still see it, can you? Oh, there it is. Well done. Burchell starling, same as the one you've just had with Tristan before he found all the other animals on the reserve. And it is looking for little insects. And I'm sure it's finding quite a few, but of course not as many as it normally does. And you must be thinking to yourself, goodness, that man looks very tall suddenly. And you would not be wrong. I'm standing on a tree. I'm standing on a tree that has been very cleanly cut in half there by some elephants sometime in the past. Obviously that wasn't elephants, obviously that was the wood collecting crew that came and chopped it once it had been pushed onto the road by elephants, and it was a knobthorn tree. Okay, let's just go up to where that starling was and see if we can't find out what it was trying to eat. Cordelia, you want to know what the difference between a Burchell's and a glossy starling is. Cordelia, a Burchell starling is a glossy starling. The glossy starlings are those starlings that are glossy. That sounds like such a stupid thing to say, but it's true. But there are a number of different kinds of glossy starlings, and many people for the Cape glossy starling just say glossy starling. So that's what they mean with the Cape glossy starling. The Burchell starling is one of the glossy starlings because it's glossy, and then the other one that we get here, of course, is the greater blue-eared glossy starling. And that is a very common one in this area. But they are all glossy starlings. Now this is where our Burchell's starling was foraging, and I wonder what it was foraging for. This is excellent vintage elephant dung, really good sort of slightly fungal smell. Not a great deal for a there, that's what it would have been going for. Do you see under my finger there, Craig? Do you see it?
Yeah, grub.
It's not a grub, no. Try again. It's a member of the order Orthoptera. It's a hopper. It is a grasshopper. You see it there? Yeah, you got it. You got it. It's that thing there. And I think that this is a junior version of what we call a garden locust. And I say a junior version because I think it's only the garden locust that is coloured like this. And this one is smaller than the adult and doesn't seem to have wings yet, does it? Let me capture it quickly. Nope. Maybe not. Got him. No, I don't. Here's a scaphead. Oh, well, that's what the Birchall starling will try and eat. It's extremely well camouflaged, of course. And then we have, I think, some of the most interesting dung out here, and I've mentioned it before. But what it is the dung of the scrub hare. And of course, instead of having a system like a ruminant where it will regurgitate its food into its mouth, re-chew it, and then swallow it again so that it can pass through different chambers of the stomach. The scrub hare only has one stomach, but it doesn't mean that it is limited to digesting the food only once. And what it will do is digest its vegetated food, or its vegetable matter, that's what it eats, and then it will eat it again as it comes out of the bottom. Yes, that's what I said, in an action called coprophagy, which means to eat one's dung, basically. And then it passes through the digestive system again and comes out as this pellet. Now, the reason they do that, of course, is that it's very difficult to digest vegetation out here. It's really not easy at all. It's one of the main reasons we struggle, or we wouldn't be able to survive on only leaves without, I mean, you can survive as a vegetarian, of course, but you then will need nuts and other things that are slightly easier to digest. We can discuss more on this a little bit after you have come back from the animal that made this.
Well, yes, we have the elephants, and we're following this young one, and I was saying that it may have been left behind by a herd, and we've come behind Twin Dam's wall, and looking south towards Baboon Pan, there is a massive herd of them all over the place, and it seems like they've had a wonderful time playing in the mud already, because there's mud everywhere. And this little guy is now going to probably come just behind us, and probably in all likelihood cross behind and go back to where the herd is. You can see just to my right hand side here where they were playing, there is a whole big section of mud, so all of that is where they've been splashing about, and you can see how fresh that mud is, that they were here not even a few minutes ago. So had we been here about 10 minutes ago, I think we would have probably seen them, but there seems to be quite a few of them still around. I saw in the distance a number of them moving there, and it seems like another grouping is coming back towards us. So you can see there's one that's busy feeding, and typical of the last few days, there's just elephants everywhere. Hello, little guy, are you coming to say hello? So we've got our little friend who's just behind us here. So isn't that clever that it used the scent and was able to find the scent of the other elephants and follow them until it's now going to pick up exactly where they've gone. See how it's using its trunk? Look, it's busy sniffing around trying to see, okay, my friends were all here, my family was here, now it's time to find them. And you might find he'll play a little bit in the mud because it's just too good an opportunity to miss on a hot afternoon like this. There we go. It's throwing a bit of mud now, and look how clever it is when it uses its feet. Obviously not too stressed about what's going on, because it definitely is now time for a good mud bath. And an elephant mud bathing has got to be one of the best things. They just take absolute glee in doing it, and you end up with mud everywhere. They throw it all over the place. They almost have this sort of cocky attitude. The head bounces all over the place. The feet go up in the air. It just becomes a complete show as they do roll around and make themselves as muddy as possible. Now, the reason why he's throwing the mud in that way is you see it's throwing it up onto his tummy is because it's much cooler there, so it's going to throw it up on the stomach just to help cool things down, and you'll find it'll throw it behind the ears because the ears are also an area where they obviously try and cool the body. So behind the ear means this cooler dark mud just gets all those veins nice and sort of moist and kind of covered in this cool mud, and when the wind blows over that wetness, it actually is then a lot cooler for this elephant. Are you going to go right in? Yes, here we go. Isn't this amazing? I wonder if this is not going to attract some of the others back. So, David, you're saying, oh, hold on, we've got tummy down. There we go. Oh, it's just too much. Now it's time to have a little photo shoot. Look at this. Isn't this amazing?
You're set now, Miss Manili.
That's so incredible. Are you enjoying that? Isn't this incredible? Oh, we've now slid down. But that is that one happy elephant, that's for sure. You can see just the way it's rolling around. It's just completely full of happiness right now. And I would imagine it is fun. When you're a young boy, you often do this with your siblings and friends, and playing in mud for some reason just seems to be the most fun. And if you're a young elephant, it seems to be no different. Now, David, you were asking if you could, would you be able to raise an elephant as a pet? Well, yes, you could potentially do it, but it is fraught with danger. An African elephant is something that you can never really 100% guarantee its sort of trust in you. It's an animal that is very, very large, and so if things do go wrong, it's going to go wrong quite quickly. But in saying that, when I've spent time in Kenya at the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, they get a lot of orphaned elephants that unfortunately have become orphans due to poaching problems, where the mothers have been poached and they've lost their mothers, and so they take them in and they raise them back to adulthood and back to freedom. And that process, you find that the elephants become very, very trusting of people, and they'll really kind of take to people, and you'll see them moving around with people and actually listening to what people have to say, and kind of realizing that the people are looking after them. And so it almost becomes, I don't want to say pet because that's the wrong word for it, but they become trusting of us, and they allow us to look after them and to be in sort of close proximity. But once they start coming into that breeding age, so with the Wildlife Trust, once they start going into sort of 12, 14 years old as a female, they start to leave and go and join other herds. And once that happens, then they sort of disconnect with the people. Oh, you can hear them talking around us. They disconnect with you, and they then go and become wild, and you wouldn't want to just walk up to an elephant like that, even after that process. Right, so we're going to probably hang around because I can see just elephants are everywhere. They're arriving from all different angles at the moment. So while we do that, I believe James has got something a lot smaller, but also a mammal.
I do indeed, and everybody used to call me James before I started working with the James, so I'm happy with that. We've got the most obliging male Steinbuck in the entire world. It's not often that we have a situation where the Steinbuck that we're trying to show you actually stays put for more than 2 seconds. And this one's been feeding in front of us for the entire duration of Tristan's elephant's mud bath, which is really something quite special. That doesn't often happen like that. And even now, though he's quite well hidden, we've still got this amazing sighting of him. Thank you, boy. You must be the most relaxed Steinbuck in the world. Typically when we drive past them, they're fine, but as soon as you stop to try and put them on camera, all you see is a disappearing flash of the white bottom as their tail lifts up and they race away in alarm. And this is really quite lovely. He's been so kind to us. Now, this little antelope, for our new viewers, is roughly the size of, I would say, your standard fox terrier. Maybe just a little bit taller than that. I'm talking height-wise more than anything else. So this is a fully grown antelope. A very, very tiny, fully grown antelope. It probably at its shoulder wouldn't come up higher than the bottom of my knee. But they are very small and very, very sweet. I know Tristan? Well, he's very trustworthy, I guess. Tristan was talking about keeping elephants as pets and all of that. But a little Steinbuck. My neighbours had a Steinbuck in their garden. They also had a whole load of blue duiker. And when I was a small child, I'm talking about when I was a child. When I was a small child and I used to take our dog on a walk around the suburb, that to me was really, that was what I dreamed of having. Obviously I know different now, and I know that you shouldn't keep wild animals as pets, but then it was my greatest desire to have a menagerie of a small antelope, duiker and Steinbuck. And they used to just stand in their lawn and feed there. It was amazing. It was all I wanted. I believed that was the epitome of adulthood. You little one. Now, of course, I look and see this little Steinbuck actually getting closer to us, and I couldn't be happier. It's wild. They are beautiful creatures in terms of their colour. You can see, even though we're looking straight into the sun, it's got this beautiful red-brown gloss to it. Tiny, shy little antelope. This is a fully grown male, so most likely his mate, the female, will be somewhere around here. Obviously, he could potentially be on his own. He could just have reached maturity and is still looking for a female. But Steinbuck form together in these monogamous couples, and then they have these tiny little territories that they fiercely protect, or at least in theory. However, the male Steinbuck will chase away other males, and the female Steinbuck will chase away other females. But if he were to find a strange lady that had wandered into his territory, there would be absolutely nothing stopping him from mating with her. Oh, how funny. Just the slightest little groan of the vehicle, and you saw him dashing off, but he stopped, relaxed again. Maybe he just really wanted that leaf over there. Like me every time I go on leave, running towards a Chinese takeaway. Bye-bye, little Steinbuck. As it disappears, I think that you should head back to Truston.
Thank you, Pajamas. That's very kind of you to call me Truston. Very, very nice. It's one of those things, don't worry, it does happen. And now, for those of you who don't know why I'm calling Jamie Pajamas, well, that's her nickname in camp. James calls her Pajamas all the time, and it's because of her name, Patterson. That's where it comes from. Now, you can see we've got a couple of the young bulls still hanging around, and there's been two here that have been pushing one another and having a bit of a game, and the one got pushed down the bank and sort of fell and has now gone behind that tree and took its frustration out on the tree. It broke about 4 branches on there in sort of a temper tantrum of note that it got pushed down the hill, and now all is returned to calm. But interestingly enough, while we were sitting here, I've heard some elephants a little bit further east of us that were trumpeting and really making quite a fuss. Now, this morning when we were walking, that is the last place that we had tracks for those Styx lionesses, so I wonder if maybe, just maybe, these elephants haven't stumbled across those lions and are busy chasing them. That's why we're hearing deep trumpets going on. So I'm going to go around there and check just now. But there just seems to be elephants literally popping out of the bush everywhere. Everywhere I've been looking, there's kind of just another elephant that arrives. There's one that came back down towards Twin Dams now. There's these two. There's sound for more of them in front of us. So it just really does promise to be a lot of elephants around Twin Dams this afternoon. And I would imagine after they've fed like they're doing now, you'll find that most of them will probably come back towards this waterhole again, just to make use of the water in the late afternoon. Ferg, let's see if we can't find more of them in front here while these two go down and feed. So, Bonnie, yes, the mud is a very, very valuable part of an elephant's sort of process of keeping its skin in good condition. So it will be able to get rid of parasites. What happens is often when they spray themselves with mud, the mud encases any particular tick that they may have. They then go rub on something, that mud dries a little bit, and it will be able to pull those ticks out. It also acts as a very rough agent when they go and rub. Oh, sorry, little guy, I didn't see you there. As I was saying, elephants are popping out all over the place. Sorry, Ferg, you've also got a spider web. So those that mud will act as a very, very rough substance to exfoliate skin, and so when it comes to ticks and other parasites, that will be able to be coarse enough to actually rub those off and keep this elephant's skin in really good condition. So it's not only a cooling aspect, it's also to be able to keep the elephant's skin in good condition. What's going on now? Are you coming to say hello? I think he's decided discretion is the better part of valor at this stage. Or not. Now it's a little dust bath time. Isn't it amazing how they use their feet? I'm so impressed with elephants when they use their feet. They're able to be so delicate and get the soil and mud and they're able to then spray it all over themselves. So quite amazing to watch. Right, our male is off into the thickets, but I believe James Henry has managed to find an animal in the thickets and has gotten very close.
Yes, we are quite close, everybody, and we're just looking at its bottom at the moment, but it was looking at us, and Herbert then addressed it in Shangaan, and it seemed to relax entirely, and then I told it to eat again in Shangaan, and so that's exactly what it started to do. So this is the first Shangaan Nyala in history, everybody. Speaks fluent Shangaan, well, certainly understands it. It hasn't responded to us yet in Shangaan. Nyala. I will now talk to it in Shangaan, we'll see if it responds. Hey Nyala. Hey lagu bula bula. Unabangwanyane vakbukala TV. Valagumvon. Jiganyan. Ikombel. I've just told him that, of course, there are people looking at him on the television and asked him if he wouldn't mind turning round. Maybe his understanding of Shangaan isn't quite as good as I thought it was. Come around here. He's really close by. And Tristan is suggesting that maybe it only speaks game drive Shangaan, which of course is not Shangaan at all, but abomination. I don't think so, because it responded beautifully to Herbert's pure Shangaan. Are you going to make it through here, Craig? He's just so confiding. He's not nervous at all, and I'm sure it's because he's sort of been around camp and he knows that we're not about to eat him. We're in the valley of the great Mlwamati, and he's just vanished. Phew. He's vanished into thin air, and I don't... We're not going to get through here, are we, Craig? Do you want to go around that way? I'll go through here. Craig's going to guide you all around that side, and then we'll come back this way. It's so pretty down in here. And there he is. I've found him again. Well done, Craig. Craig's now done an extra 10 meters. He'll get an extra carrot for supper. Or maybe a piece of beetroot. Would you like beetroot or carrot, Craig? Never mind. There's the Nyala. Just looking at us through there, and you can just see a little bit of light shining off his muzzle and his ears. Now, he's a lot more suspicious of us than he was when we started out here, because we're now very clearly following him, and he knows that. We'll try for one more view, and then we'll carry on. And at this point, when I'm approaching an animal on foot, I like to just keep talking quietly so it knows where I am, knows that I'm not trying to sneak up on it, crouch down at all. Just walk normally, try not to stand on any trees, bushes, make a big noise. He's right next to me now on the left-hand side. I'm just going to keep walking gently by while Craig turns the camera towards him. You got him there, Craig? So, as Kirsten has now sarcastically said to me, very stealthy, the idea is not stealth. The idea is quite the opposite. The idea is to becalm the animal we're looking at by behaving in a manner that a predator would never behave in. And so we don't want to behave in a stealthy fashion. Did you see it there, near in there, Craig? A little bit. Alrighty. We're going to carry on down this game path. I just heard a bird. Ali, you say, how many languages do I speak? Ali, I speak English. That's my main language, you may have noticed. I speak bad Zulu and bad Shangaan. Those are the two African languages I speak, and I speak even worse Afrikaans, which I stopped speaking when I left school. I've had hardly any use for it at all since then. But my Shangaan's not too bad. It's conversational enough to make myself understood, and Zulu about the same. And my Zulu, of course, is now vastly improving with the addition of Senzo to the guiding team, because he is a Zulu. Now, what we have here is quite an unusual tree for this area, and it only grows where there is water under the ground, and it's called Acacia robusta, or the splendid thorn. And I think it's called the splendid thorn because, Craig, look at this thorn. It is very splendid. Yes, well done. Look how large it is. It is quite enormous. And if Gendre was walking around here, he would almost certainly stand on one that about this length, and it would end up going through his foot all the way to the top and out the other side. And he would then get camera foot, which of course is a dreadful disease. Did you think that was a snake?
I don't know what it was.
I did. I thought it was a snake, and it isn't. There are a whole lot of francolins that have been sitting in this area here, and they've just decided we've been here for too long, we're almost certainly going to discover them. Anyway, we're not going to be able to see them on the camera, I don't think. That's very cool. Okay, from the slender thorn and chat of camera's foot, let's head across to Tristan. Beefy Dix, I'm not sure what he's doing or what he's looking for.
James Henry, Beefy Dix, that's probably a new one for me, and quite an entertaining one. I quite like that one. Well done, James. It's a very good one, and I suppose I deserve it after calling you one of the little people this morning. Now, our elephants are slowly but surely disappearing into the thickets. I came down into the Milwaukee just to have a little look if there weren't any tracks down here. It's always a good place just to see if there's any tracks for cats, but there doesn't seem to be any. And I wonder if this elephant hasn't been here a few weeks ago, because it's in an area where there was a bit of a seep going 3 or 4 weeks ago. There was water seeping out of that area, and it seems to be smelling there just to check if there is any water. What are you doing? Are you going to sit there now? Have you got yourself stuck? No? All is good. Well done. Oh. And this is the problem with an animal that can't jump, is negotiating steep climbs like that can be a little bit difficult. But well done, managed in the end. Now, I got a report from Andrew saying that the sticks were actually found, or some of them at least, were found on Little Gowrie. So I wonder if we might not find them this afternoon. With all these elephants about, if they go into Little Gowrie, they could then potentially chase these sticks north. The elephants really don't like lions at all. So hopefully these elephants move around, and for some reason they push the lions northwards and we find them this afternoon. But it does not bode well for my thoughts of the elephants actually chasing them just now. It means that they already have gone south, and the tracks that we had this morning were the correct ones where Herbie said they went south. So, but there is hope at least. I'm going to just try and see if we can't reverse out of the Milwaukee here. It's no point in going all the way up. It's also, the Milwaukee is Gremlins Central, so it's not a place you want to spend too much time with Wendy, because otherwise you end up losing signal, and that's never the best idea. Now, we're going to try to get out of here. While we do, let's go to Jamie Pajamas.
I'll show you now.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Still nobody to this day can explain the nickname Pajamas, but that's okay. And perhaps it's just because I occasionally dress in comfortable clothes that look very pajama-like. Either way, I've come back to our Hornbill nest just to see how the little ones are doing. I can hear them squawking in there, so all are alive and well. And you see it there, that funny little hole in the knot in the tree.
This one?
It is indeed that one. Oh, I can't see off the glare of the monitor. Yeah, it's that bottom hole over there. There you go. Down a little bit.
Down.
There you go. There's an eye sticking out. Dear watcher, looking at our birds, you would like to know, how is a bird connected to a snake? Okay, fair enough. It was a very, very distant connection. Kirsty thought it was very tenuous as well. Supposedly they evolved from the same sort of ancestors, the dinosaurs obviously being the bird's closest relatives, but apparently some theorists suggest, and I mean, look at that eye. Doesn't that look dinosaur-like? Like something out of Jurassic Park? Some theorists suggest distantly, if you go back, birds and reptiles are more closely related than, say, birds and mammals. I admit it was a stretch. It was a serious stretch, Hello. Look, your beak's getting red. It was a stretch. Kirsty was correct. It was a little bit of a leap of a link. Sometimes the links go a bit pear-shaped. But that was the connection that I made in my mind in terms of relatives of birds and reptiles being related. We are going back quite a few years, probably before I was born, let's put it that way. I was going to make a comment, but I won't, because I know James will find it very boring and quite offensive, so I won't at all. Hey, little birdie, where's your sibling? I only see one of you today. Last time I came to visit this red-billed hornbill nest, there were 2 of them. It could be that they're both in there. It could just be that they've got so big so quickly that they aren't both fitting right up near the hole. In fact, he might even be fighting off a sibling now. Well, yeah, I think there's 2 there. I think there's 2. I'm not 100% sure. And now we... Look, I'm sorry, that's very Jurassic Park. Is it not? Especially since they think that a lot of the later dinosaurs were probably feathered. Hello. Peekaboo. Let's go over to Tristan, whose baby elephants are performing.
Well, we've got the cheekiest little baby elephant. Look at it, right? So it's decided to take exception to us and has come charging out the bush and has been charging at us for the last few seconds. I don't know why it's taken such a problem with us. You see, here it comes again. What are you doing, little one? I'm sorry. What have we done to offend you? I don't know where Mom is. Maybe it's the fact that there was a young bull that came past and this little one is now a little bit lost and doesn't know where its mom is. Now, the last thing I want to do is get anywhere between it and its mom, because if Mom hears this crying and feels like we're threatening her baby, it will be a big problem. But off it goes. It seems to be just charging around. Maybe it's just having fun. I don't know what's with the elephants this afternoon, but it sure is entertaining, that's for sure. We've had it all. We've had swimming, we've had mud wallowing. Well, I suppose swimming. Is he coming out again? Maybe it's gone to Big Brother over there. You can see the young male is walking along, and it seems that the little one is looking. I wonder if it's not lost its mom temporarily. There's elephants all over the place. Maybe it's gotten a bit confused as to where Mom is, and that's why it's ended up now running to the brother, or one of the males in the herd. Did it go past the male, Ferg, or was it still here some? I don't know, there the rest are up at the top. We've managed to find all the others, so... Right, so we're going to try and see if we can't find why our little Ellie is running about like a hooligan, because I can see him up ahead, still running down the road. And while we do that, let's go across to James Henry, who's at another waterhole, maybe admiring something of his own.
It's just a very beautiful waterhole, everybody. The reason we've come across here is that the picture of the green plants on top of the surface is very peaceful, and it's kind of picture book, storybook. Jeremy, what did we call him? Oh gosh, the frog, what's his name quickly? Jeremy Fisher from Beatrix Potter. You'd imagine this is where he'd live, along with a baby water monitor we saw here. Well, we didn't. Herbert saw it when we arrived here. And then lots and lots of little insects making their way in the world, sitting on the surface of the water. It is really amazing. Can you see all the insects on the surface there, Craig? Just in front of us here. And I gave this little lesson a while back, but water is capable of holding a certain amount of mass like this, where many liquids wouldn't be, because of its rather unique chemical properties. And the chemical properties, for those who are interested, are or result from something called the polar bonds that exist between different water molecules. And because, of course, most of us know that H2O is water, the oxygen atom that makes up the O2 part of the H2O. The O part of H2O is much, much bigger than the H, the two H's. And what it means is basically you've got a molecule which is positively charged on one side and negatively charged on the other, and you don't need to worry about how that happens. But it means that basically all of the little molecules act like electrostatic, or they've got electrostatic charges, if you like, and they stick together, and that's what gives water this amazing surface tension that very few liquids have. I think that's correct, if I remember my high school chemistry correctly. It's called a polar bond. It is. And then, of course, it will hold much bigger things than that. It will hold things... I've got a grasshopper. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness, Craig, do you think it'll bite me?
Probably.
I think this is Pseudotheracles, everyone. Good afternoon, Pseudotheracles. Now, I think it comes from the same family of the grasshoppers that the first one we saw today, which was, of course, Brachypus, sorry. And I think this is Pseudotheracles, one of the species thereof, and they're all known, or all easily identified by their very short little antenna. Isn't he cool? And while you look at that, I did have a water spider here. That was also making use of the polar bonds offered by the surface of the water. And where has it gone? Let's just disturb these leaves slightly. Oh, little spider, where hast thou gone? No. I'm afraid it has moved off. Sorry about that. That was a very pretty water spider. Alrighty, we're going to leave here. We've sort of got halfway down as far south as we want to go, so we need to keep going to the southeast. See what we can pick up that way, avoid Tristan's elephants. And while we do that, Jamie Pajamas Patterson is sitting with some hornbills that do not have any pajamas.
They don't have any pajamas, but they do have a nice comfy covering of feathers, which I imagine must be almost as good. Bless you, Seb.
Sorry.
That's all right. Don't apologise. It happens
Surprised me.
I know exactly what that feels like. At least you don't have a microphone sitting in your hat, so that every single viewer across the globe gets a fright every time you sneeze. The hornbill didn't seem to be too bothered. A moment earlier, we saw one of the adults come in and feed one of the chicks, and we know at this point that both the male and the female are out. Well, sorry, the female is out of the nest and she's helping the male to feed the little ones. Now it's just a matter of waiting for them to return. Now, Ali, a question that I've always wondered about. You want to know how on earth do the birds put their nests inside the tree? And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about the female hornbill. Because that does seem like a ridiculously small hole, does it not? Now, obviously, this limb was either broken off by an elephant or by possibly even just it died off and it fell off, it rotted away. And because marula wood is very soft, it makes for the perfect hollow because wood borer, beetles and so on get in there immediately, and then things like barbets and woodpeckers will excavate holes as well. The hornbills will excavate a little bit, but most of the time they'll utilize existing hollows, and then somehow the female squeezes herself into that tiny little hole, just like the chicks are going to have to do when they squeeze their way out again. And she manages to, or she loses all of her flight feathers, and she lays her eggs, and then she grows her flight feathers back, she breaks out, and she continues to feed the chicks. But what we do know is that hornbills block up the entrance with a sort of a muddy saliva mixture, and I think this hole was actually probably bigger than it looks, because if you look around the edges, I actually think it's been closed up a little bit. That's all sort of rotten wood, but just around the edge of the hole. I think it's probably about a third bigger than than the space we're actually seeing. And that bit, especially in the sort of the bottom right, I think that's all been blocked up by the hornbills themselves. And in the beginning, the female will just have a tiny little hole that the male will feed her through and that she will then defecate out of. whenever she needs to. And then I think as she broke out, it probably widened up the opening, and they might even have packed more of that around the entrance once she was out again. But it's an interesting question. The only reason I think that is because of the colour difference, and also because I've seen the chicks pecking at that. Laurie, yes, I think there's a very good chance that the parents could go back to the same nest next year. The ground hornbills, of course, are famous for utilising the same nest site year after year after year, but I imagine that yellow-billed and red-billed will do exactly the same thing, if they can, if they know there's a nice nesting spot there. They might find, however, that it's been usurped by something else. Perhaps a snake, perhaps a bush baby, perhaps a squirrel. Although I struggle to see how a squirrel or a bush baby could actually fit in there, come to think of it. Maybe another bird species could have hollowed it out even further, a barbet, and stolen it from them, in which case they'll have to find somewhere different. But they always seem to nest in marula trees, and I think that's just a product of the fact that the wood is so soft and malleable. Every single hornbill nest that we found this season has been in a marula tree, if I'm not mistaken. Absolutely. Beard, it's lovely to hear from you once again. Beard came to visit us not too long ago, and we had a lovely visit with him and his wife. He came to see Final Control, meet all of us in person, and I think I mentioned this a couple of days ago, how wonderful it is to put a face to a name that we hear so regularly. But Beard, absolutely. Hornbill dads win Dad of the Year every single year. They really are very special. The fact that they continue to feed the female while during her time of confinement, I think is perhaps the best way of putting it. And not just that, I mean the whole process, because one of the ways that a male will win the affections of a female is to bring her food. To go away, bird. I thought it was a hornbill coming back. Come on, parents. You've got hungry babies to feed. But he'll actually bring the female gifts of food just to prove that he can look after her while she is stuck in a hole in a tree. Doesn't sound very appealing, does it? Must get a little bit cramped and a bit overly cozy in there. Okay, I've been sitting here for a while now. I was going to patiently wait, but even the chicks appear to have given up on their parents for now. They've gone quiet, and I don't see any sign of the hornbills coming back. One more look at the chicks in their nest, and then it's time for us to probably move on. Patience is great, but sometimes you need to know when to call it quits. Hey, little chicks. Good luck. I'm sure in the next few days they're going to break out. They look to me like they're almost at that stage. How long do we bet? A week? Less than a week. Jade, no. As far as I know, I've never actually managed to get an eye inside a hornbill nest when the female's in there. But as far as I know, she doesn't lose all of her feathers, which would leave her quite vulnerable. As far as I know, it's the... Oh my goodness, I'm having a moment of memory loss. You know the primary flight feathers? What's the official name for them? It'll come to me. And the tail feathers. They're two words that sound so similar that they get mixed up a lot. It's the end feathers on the edge of the wings, as far as I know, that she loses. She still keeps her downy covering. You know when you're grasping at smoke in your mind, and every time you think you've got it, it's going to drive me mad. What on earth are they called? It's not rictal bristles, those are the whisker-like feathers. It's not primary and secondary, no, it's not. Those are not the ones I mean. Having flashbacks to studying for an exam on birds. Oh, goodness. Oh dear, the spirit is willing, but the brain is not working. It's going to drive me absolutely nuts. If you know the word I'm thinking of, or the two words I'm thinking of, please send them through. But sorry, I got distracted from the question completely. It's the edge feathers, as far as I know, along the edge of the wings, the ones that function as the primary flight feathers, and I think most of her tail feathers as well. Oh, this is so frustrating. Kirsty, I don't even know what that word was that you just said. Kirsty's trying to help me out. Maybe I'm making it up. Maybe there isn't a word. No, but there is a word. Okay. No, this is... Okay, Kirsty's convinced I'm making it up. Maybe I am. It's gonna drive me nuts. No, okay, I've got to drive. I've got to stop thinking of it, because now I'm... That's it. The Retrix... Thank you very much, Sean. I think I was taught a different pronunciation, but that's exactly what I'm thinking of. The Retrices, R-E-T-R-I-C-E-S, and the... What's the other one? Remies. R-E-M-E-M-E-S. No, that's Rememes. That's not a word. Remus... The Retrices are... I'm done. I can't think. I'm now at the point where my brain has tied itself in so many knots. Thanks, Kirst, for your attempts to help me. Thank you, Sean. It is Retrices that I'm thinking of. I can't remember the other one now. That's how I was always taught to pronounce it. It's entirely possible I was taught wrong. It's entirely possible, given my lack of Latin training, which my law professor always used to moan about. Could be that I'm pronouncing it wrong. Right, goodbye, Hornbills, I'm done. Retrices is... I've lost my mind. Maybe there's different words for maybe different words used by different people. Okay, we're going to Arathusa. I've now checked every road on Djuma between the sunrise and the sunset safari. I'm now going to go and check Arathusa. I know that Tristan's given you the update about the sticks on Little Gowrie. There's still some debate as to exactly how many sticks were found this morning on Little Gowrie. Still wondering whether there might not be one around Djuma somewhere. Don't forget to send through any questions that you may have. Please don't ask me what the flight feathers are called on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. Kirsty, have you been trying to speak to me? You haven't received either. Have we lost? Oh, there she is. There she is. Found her again. I just thought you were perhaps sending me the barrage of questions that I assume we're getting. I thought so. I thought that was the case. And it seems as though the reason for Kirsty's brief distraction can be attributed to Brent in the Mara.
Welcome to the Sunset Safari from Kenya. We've got a wonderful little herd of elephants behind me. My name is Brent Smith, and for the first time from Kenya, Dangerous Dave, the objectified dish. There we go, the only thing better looking than the Masai Mara, Dangerous Dave. Of course, we're only joking. We've got a wonderful little herd of elephants here. Remember, if you want to ask us any questions, hashtag Safari Live, and the light is just to die for out here. So a little family group. There are quite a few eddies spread out around this area. Now, we actually weren't looking for elephants at all. We were looking for the Angama pride that are somewhere around here. And I think they're not too far away, probably sleeping in the shade of one of these trees. But the light was just so beautiful. Oh, shaking its head. Look at this little guy here. There we go, right next to the little road, having a good old time. Now, the elephants here, of course, eat a lot more grass than trees. So their dung is slightly darker in color. It's not as reddish as the ones as you get in the Sabi Sands. And it's, of course, because of the high amount of starch and sugars they're getting from this lush grassland. Now, the only time... Dave, birders, Dave. Oh, this is going to be quite difficult, but I think this is definitely a new bird species for everyone. A black kukul. Okay, Dave. Oh, this is now without a monitor. This is quite challenging. I'm going to jump around to the other side so I can have a look at your screen where you're pointing. Okay, so we're going to go basically over this little Eddie's head.
Yep.
And in the grass there, I don't know if you can see him now.
Actually on the ground.
On the ground, yeah. Might be just in the grass. Oh, where's it gone? Has it disappeared? We'll try to get a bit closer. But so we're sorry we're so late today, but we've been dodging the rainstorms. So literally, we've had to try to drive in and around rainstorms, and it's finished raining, and you can see how beautifully clear and sunny it is now. And you can see how these eddies are all using their feet to help the trunk get those luscious grasses. Sorry, Dave.
That's alright.
It is absolutely spectacular. Every single time I come down the mountain, I'm blown away by something. Could be the light, it could be the trees. Well, speaking of trees, I suppose we should start the Kenya Nearly Impossible Tree Quiz. Now, this could be a little bit unfair, so I'm not going to start it yet. I'm going to teach you a few of the trees before we do that. But there's two very big quinine trees. So you can extract quinine from them. And of course, quinine is used for malaria treatment. So there we go, quinine trees. There we go, Dave zooming in the leaves. So you see, if any of you know what a mango tree looks like, sometimes the leaves look a little bit similar, but they're probably a bit thinner and a bit longer. And a very sort of light colored bark. And as you can see, the leaves can be very varied in color, from quite dark green in the back tree to quite light and yellow in the front tree. Oh, Dave, look down into the swamp. There's lots of eddies there, but there's also a big flock of egrets around. How's it look?
Very swampy.
Very swampy. Now, Shelley... Oh, hang on. Shelley is wondering, with little trees around, what do the... That's a lion. There's a lion. I was like, what is that thing on top of the termite mound? It is a very lazy looking lion. I knew they were around here somewhere. Now we are in the swampy area, so we've got to be careful, and there's no off-roading in this area, but we will try to get a bit closer. I think there's a road that runs down towards that termite mound. But there we go, there's a lion. Lioness, it looks like. Sorry, Shelley, I got totally sidetracked by the lion. So Shelley's wondering, what do the elephants eat when the grass goes and dies? Well, unlike Southern Africa, maybe we've got 2 rainy seasons here, so it's unlikely that all the grass will be gone. But what does happen is over 1.5 million animals, Thompson's gazelle, zebra and wildebeest, arrive. Oh dear, we're going to have a phone call shortly. I lost comms with South Africa, so if you hear a phone ringing, I do apologize, but that's how we're communicating. So as I was saying, what happens is they arrive, and they munch the grass very, very short. And when that happens, the elephants move up into the escarpment and to the acacia forests down south. So there are trees for them to move, and they really don't like it when the wildebeest are here. So they tend to move off, and when the migration is around, you don't see as many elephants. Oh, it is just too beautiful. Oh, look at all the egrets in the tree, Dave. In the tree. So I'm going to jump across in front again. Hi. We're back. I'm just saying hello to Final Control. They're back with me. They're mostly cattle egrets. Yeah, just to the left of the eddies up in the tree there. Now, I'm going to try get us a bit closer to that lion. I think it's definitely one of the Angama females. Hi, Darlene. Darlene's wondering what language other than English is spoken in Kenya. Well, there are quite a lot of different languages. Of course, there's Ma, which is Maasai, but the most widely spoken language in Kenya is Kiswahili. Now, Kiswahili is a very interesting language. It's a trade language, and it's made up of about 20% Arabic, 80% Bantu languages, and it is even spoken all the way in India, in Goa. So the trade routes from the Arab dhows have been running for many thousands of years, and so Kiswahili is a combination of that. So it is spoken throughout Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, even a little bit in Rwanda, but it is a very, very interesting language, and it's made up of lots of different things. But of course, then there's Kikuyu, there's Samburu, there's lots of other dialects as well. Oh, look at this bull coming across in front of us here. Hello, big boy. Okay, well, I try to get us a bit closer to the lions. Let's go across to more elephants with Tristan at Chitwa.
Well, it's good to hear from old Limpy Leo Smith himself. Brent in the Mara seems to be having a fantastic time. Every time I talk to him, he's like a little kid in a candy shop, and he's very excited about what's going on. And yes, there is elephants everywhere. Literally from when we've left camp all the way to Chitwa is just elephants the whole way, and there are more and more herds that are coming down this way towards Chitwa. So we've got a couple bull elephants here. There's a big herd in the background, and they're all drinking around Chitwa Dam. And like I say, all those herds that we've seen previously are on their way down this way as well. There's a family of Egyptian geese somewhere in the middle there as well. So it's all happening out here. It's really quite spectacular to see the amount of elephants that we have seen this afternoon. And the beauty of this dam at this time of the day, when there's this orange light coming over from the late afternoon and these elephants all drinking, is really something special. So we're very, very fortunate to be able to sit here and watch them as they go. You can see there's the Egyptian geese. Careful, Egyptian geese, you're about to get sprayed by a big bull elephant. And that Ellie is no small elephant. He looks sort of dwarfed there because we are up on the hill a little bit, but he is actually very, very big indeed. So he seems to be quite happy with this afternoon, and I wonder if he's not going to go for a swim. I've seen many elephants, particularly these big bulls, swim quite a lot at Chitwa Dam. They, for some reason, love it. It's probably because the dam is so deep that they can wade in and they can literally go way underwater, and all you'll find is just this trunk sticking up out of the sort of the surface of the water, and so they really do spend a lot of time swimming here. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do. There he comes, another young bull just to join him. There we go. And a little terrapin at the base of the trunk there. Terrapin, are you also going to get sprayed if you're not careful? That's quite cool. We've got 3 species in one shot there. Egyptian geese, terrapin, and an elephant trunk, all together making friends. Now, I wonder what's happening with this herd as well. I see they're lifting their trunks and just sniffing around, and they've formed a tight-knit unit. And I think it's because of the crocodiles that we get at Chitwa Dam. So you see how all of the adult females are around the babies while they're drinking, and they're all kind of making sure that those babies are all huddled together and that they don't go too far. Inside Chitwa Dam is a monstrous crocodile, which I can actually see now, and is sitting sunning itself. But this is probably this behavior to protect those little babies. So if we look across the bank here, there is our crocodile lying on the bank, and look at the size of that crocodile. It is massive. So Brent has named that crocodile Boris the Blade, or is this Vladimir the Impaler? I think this is Vlad the Impaler. I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to find. Yes, I think it is Vlad. But Vlad is having a moment's rest, but that crocodile is huge. You can see the little water thickney in front there. It's a really sort of dwarfed by this massive crocodile. And I'm sure this crocodile will eventually start slinking back to start hunting. So that now's a good time to actually be here for the crocodiles. Whenever I used to work at Chitwa, I used to find that they would hunt in the sort of shallows that are around this time. Just before we went on game drive, you'd find them pushing fish right up against the edge of the dam, and then they would snap away at them, and saw them catch I don't even know how many fish in my time at Chitwa. So it's probably a good time to be here. Maybe it's going to start slinking as that sun begins to go down. Now we'll sit here with our Ellies and hope that the rest of the herd start arriving. And while we do that, let's go across to Jamie with some dwarf mongoose that seem to be playing around just like our elephants are.
I wish they were playing around just like Tristan's Ellies, but what's actually happening is we've got one solitary little dwarf mongoose who is not so much playing around as looking noble, or trying to look very noble and stately, but he or she has got spider webs all over his chin. Hey, you got a little something just there from ducking into your hole. This little mongoose nearly gave me a heart attack earlier because I was driving along quite peacefully and decided to race right out into the middle of the road. I know this particular business of dwarf mongoose. I've actually been very close to them before when I've been on tracking team out on foot. I've actually gone right up to them while I've been lying on my belly. So I'm quite familiar with them and they with me. And I don't know where the rest of them have gone. I can't even hear them squeaking to each other. And I think if this one could talk, James has been talking to Inyala. I think if this one could talk, it would probably be shaking its fist at me and perhaps cursing me. Yes, I'm sorry, you came shooting out right at the last minute. Yes, you did. And then straight down into your hole. It's okay to move now. They are such sweet little creatures. Just while this dwarf mongoose is sitting so obligingly, Sean, I'm really sorry. I was having such a dim moment with singulars and plurals, retrix and remix, and remages and retrices or retrices. I really was. That was what my mother would have called when I was a kid. That's what my mother would have called a Jamie moment, which is like a blonde moment, only less offensive to blonde people and only offensive to me. Sometimes the brain doesn't work so well. Oh, it's okay. Come back. Oh, Jason, you want to know, because they are courageous little creatures, even if this one's not feeling particularly courageous after its fright earlier. You want to know whether or not I've ever seen a dwarf mongoose take on a snake. I've never seen dwarf mongoose do it. I have seen banded mongoose band together, so to speak, and mob a snake, and actually eventually mob the snake so much so that it slithered away. It was a cobra as well. So I was truly very impressed with them. The only time I've seen a dwarf mongoose encounter with a snake was on one of these live safaris, ages ago now, with Viam, when that snake slithered through and they all moved their babies around. I'm sure that dwarf mongoose at eye level to the ground see all sorts of things. Apparently, James has managed to spot something that I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's go over to James, who's got something small.
It is a spider, everybody, and it has found itself a little home in Ziziphus mucronata. And I'm not sure what kind of spider it is, but it was lurking on the grass where my finger is now sitting, and as soon as it took one look at Craig's camouflage pants, it headed speedily towards here, where it's got some silk that I think it's used to close two leaves together and make itself a little home. Those have then been preyed upon, I don't think that's a verb, predate, preyed upon by some caterpillar or grasshopper or something like that. And I think that you'll find what it has tried to capture is something like this. You can see over there we have an acria that's been caught by a spider. And I suspect the acria sat innocently on this grass and was then grabbed by a hunting spider of some sort. And what's quite cool, you can't see the spider, obviously, but you can see the acria. And you might also, if I tilt it like this, be able to see just inside the acria's wings there's a silken sac, and I wonder if that isn't an egg sac of whatever spider it was that killed the acrea. And I would very much like to put this under the microscope, but unfortunately I'm not carrying a microscope with me. Carrie, are you carrying a microscope?
Not today.
Not today, he says. That's fair enough. He's got enough to carry. Isn't that cool? So we'll put this back here. And of course these poor spiders are now running out of things to eat. Far fewer grasshoppers. Let's just have one last look at this guy here. Might be a crab spider of some description, I'm not sure. Now, to many people, of course, stroking a spider on the abdomen would be a fate worse than death, but I'm just giving this one a little calming stroke. There we are. Yes. What a sweet little spider. Oh, yes. So sweet. I think I've heard an elephant, but while I'm listening to an elephant, you are going to look at an elephant.
Well, yes, not much has changed. There's elephants everywhere still, James, and they are moving around, and I'm trying to look over my shoulder to see when the rest are going to arrive. They should be coming shortly as this herd departs, and now we know why they all had their trunks up and were smelling, is because there was one young bull that arrived and came down to the water's edge, and so they were probably just checking who it is, and I see another bull is actually on its way down as well. It's going to show up in the next little bit. It's just starting to come down the hill over there. There we go. Hello, guy. He's decided he's going to feed and wait for the big bull to leave first, I think, before he starts coming down too quickly, just in case that big bull decides to push him off. But it really is such a spectacular scene. Ferg and I were just talking. It's this beautiful light. There's hippos, there's Egyptian geese, there's the crocodile, there's the terrapins, the elephants are all here. There was impalas rutting just now. You could almost spend your entire afternoon just sitting here and admiring all the things that are going on around you. It really is very, very pleasant indeed. You can see they're all just now ambling off as they've had their drink, and it's time for them to go. And so, Johan, you're wondering if it's true if elephants can be left and right-handed. Well, considering they don't have hands, it's a little bit difficult, but they can use one side of their body more predominantly than the other. So you'll find that they'll use their left tusk or their right tusk more predominantly, and actually the trunk itself will be used in that way too. And what you'll end up with is a situation where on the inside of the trunk you'll have these rows of muscles that protrude, and if they use their left side more, you'll find the left side of that trunk muscles will actually get bigger and more swollen, and if it's the right side of the animal that they normally, or right side of the body that they normally use, the right muscles will get much bigger. So you can start to actually see whether they use left or right more often than one or the other. And so it is, I suppose, true that they do. The thing is, though, with an elephant is if, let's say, their left tusk breaks and they're a left sort of sided animal, they will then shift onto the right side and use that right tusk again, because they still will need the tusk to do certain functions, and they will then utilize that as much as possible. So it's not that they only use one side of their body, they just prefer one side, and if that then fails them, they will then move on to the other side and use that. But you can see now it's a lazy afternoon. I think the elephants are enjoying being by the waterhole and the late afternoon light as much as we are. There's a couple of bulls up to no good there. They're busy pushing each other around. And those are all the younger bulls. So those are all the bulls that are around sort of 20 years old that are being accompanied by this massive bull. And so you'll find that they'll actually be quite well behaved, because in his presence they know that he's going to be far more dominant than they will be, and he'll definitely be able to push them around. And so they won't challenge him in any way, but they will play with one another, because they can see they're quite evenly matched. They're both of similar sort of size, and they'll then be able to kind of push one another around and make sure that they sort of establish a dominance amongst them, and also practice for later in life when they get a lot bigger and older and they actually have to compete for mating rights. Sorry, I just heard our impala shouting. I thought we were going to see a rutting impala come running across, but unfortunately not. And look at these two. They're having an absolute ball. Careful, if you bump into that big guy, he's not going to be very happy at all. There's our big elephant there. And let's see how this plays out. You might find he comes and gets involved and just settles the two youngsters down. I'm really hoping they're going to go into the water and start playing. Would be the best thing. Normally they don't swim in that area though, so where they are now is quite a deep section of the dam. When they typically swim, they actually swim close to this island where the crocodile was sitting earlier, and that's where they'll kind of play around and they mess around in that little channel, and then a little bit to the right where there's a floodplain area of the dam. It's very seldom that I've actually seen these elephants swimming in this area where they are now. It's more here in front where we're looking at now, and then across to my right hand side where there's a little mom, hippo and baby. Actually, you see that, Fergus? Just popped its head up. There's a little baby on top of its mom's back. Don't go under, no. There's a little baby's head. Hey, little one. So the little baby is obviously resting on its mom. I want to just see when the mom pops up. She should pop up there somewhere. And this is the little baby that Brent found a few months ago. It was in February that Brent saw this little baby for the first time. And you can see it's grown quite a bit. So it has gotten a lot bigger now. And it still rests though in the shadows. It's still wary of going into too deep water. You find the mother keeps it quite close to the shallow areas, and you'll find when this little baby comes out to eat, because it'll already be on grass now, it's going to feed very, very close to the dam itself. It's not going to move too much. And I see our elephants are back to their shenanigans again. So while our hippos are underwater and not really doing too much, I suppose we should have a look at our bull elephants and see what they're up to. And I was saying that hippo will kind of just feed off the edges and then will go back into the water and stay close because of predators. They need to have water close by. So Candace, all the way from Canada, you're asking, do the Ellies suck the mud up or do they just pick it up? Well, when we saw earlier that Ellie having a mud bath, he was definitely sucking up trunks full of mud and then spraying it on him. And if they don't do that, they're not going to be able to spray it far enough along the body to actually cool down the ears and under the tummy. And so if they just had to pick it up, they would be able to throw a little bit, but it wouldn't really be enough to actually do what they needed to do. And so in all likelihood, not in all likelihood, what they do is they pick it up with their trunk and they take big, deep breath, and that will suck mud up, and then they spray it back out again and kind of eject it onto the body itself. So that's how they do it. You'll find though that they have a membrane on the top of their trunk that stops any of that mud actually going into the lungs, and the same with water. When they do take up water, it stops any water going in, and they'll then push it out again and make sure that it comes all out and that they don't get sort of flooded with mud and water in their lungs. Now I see a little warthog has joined the party as well. So we've got a warthog that is now trotting along, and it seems to be a mother with her little ones as well. There it goes. So it's all happening at Chitwa Dam. There seems to be animals coming out of the woodwork at this stage, and you can see the little piglets at the back there. Now that's mom in front, and then it seems piglets and the previous set of piglets in the background as well. Now Andrew's being very kind and going around us, which is very thoughtful of him. Thanks, Andrew. And so we had some viewers that came to visit us this afternoon, and they're on the vehicle that's just coming past us, so they're just waving hello. So we just said hello to them quickly. And it's quite amazing that there are people that watch us from the other side of the world and then come out here and we get to meet them in person. It's quite a nice thing to be able to do, and to meet some of you and get to know your faces and sort of chat to you and get to know your stories. It is always very special, because you, the viewers, are the most important and the only reason that we really do this. So thank you to all of you that are watching, and those of you that do come out and visit. It's always a great pleasure to see you guys out here. But this is just so amazing to be sitting out at Chitwa Dam. It really is the most relaxing feeling being out here, and it's quiet. There's the odd sort of sound of the animals and the hippos and snorting, and every now and then we hear the Egyptian geese squawk away. But otherwise it's the most relaxing afternoon, just spent watching and absorbing all this beautiful sunshine that we're having. The temperature at the moment is really nice. We get to sit in the sun, and it's not too hot like in the summer months when you feel like you're being boiled alive, and it hasn't quite hit those winter temperatures yet where it really is too cold to be out in the afternoons and you have to wrap up tight. It's still that perfect temperature that you can sit in your sort of t-shirt and be absolutely comfortable. Now 2 of our bull elephants are departing, and the other 2, we're having this big bull is chasing all the Egyptian geese. So the Egyptian geese are scattering. Sorry guys. Now, I wonder where our Egyptian goose is with her little chicks. Jamie had the Egyptian geese with the chicks on the TV show, and we had them in one of the rehearsals, and they were getting dive-bombed by all kinds of things, and I think it was a martial eagle that was actually trying to take them at one stage. And so I'm trying to see if I can't actually see where the chicks are, because I'm hoping that they did survive. But I don't see them at this stage. We'll keep a lookout. But isn't this interaction with these male elephants also so amazing? Just to be able to sit and watch them. Egyptian geese, you are very brave, considering these bulls are pushing each other around. I would be very careful about going too close. So, Debbie, you're wondering about this trunk holding. So we see where the trunk goes over the tusk. Well, I would imagine that that's what you're wondering about. Or are you asking if it's where they actually grab each other's, when they hold each other's trunks, whether it's affection or whether it is a sign of sort of a challenge? Well, no. So now when you see there, that's what you're talking about. So that is more that they are scenting one another. So they're working out who's who, and they're smelling each other's breath, actually, which is quite strange. But they can then work out, okay, this is somebody that I know, an elephant that I know, and one that I can kind of trust and be around, or it's an elephant that I need to be a little bit more wary of. And so that's how they basically greet each other. It's like our handshake that we have. It's the exact same thing with the elephants. And funny enough, when I was in Kenya and we dealt with those baby elephants, the way that you would often sort of deal with them is that you would actually blow into their trunk, and then they would kind of know who you are, and they would come up and investigate you. You blow into their trunk, and then they would keep doing it, and once they worked out who you are, then they would go off, and every time they came back, that's what you would do, and they'd kind of just to reaffirm, oh, that's you, and then they would carry on again. It was really quite an amazing thing to be a part of. And here we go. This is what I thought I was hoping for. It seems like it's time for a swim, and the light couldn't be any better for this situation right now. So I'm hoping that these guys are going to go deep inside, and we're going to end up seeing them with trunks out. Often they start to play when they go into the water like this, and it just becomes a free-for-all. So I'm hoping that's what's going to happen. It seems like we might just get lucky, and if they do, we're going to be spoiled, because like I say, it's golden light, and them playing will be really, really very, very pretty.